feel like I followed my own path, and that's what I really want to encourage other people to do, is not to try to be like somebody else or to follow the traditional path. And I always, when I had that choice, felt like I'm going to go this way because it feels right to me.
Hi, Mark.
Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Mark. Hey, Mark Howley.
The Mark Howley Show.
How did you do it and why? Hey, this is Mark Howley. I'm back today, and I've got a great guest, someone that I've read a lot about, and gosh, what a long list of accolades. This is Alyssa Hsu Lynch, and she has, just a story. I could go on and on about everything you have done, climbing yourself from a professional dancer, who, if I have it right, retired at the ripe old age of 27 and moved into the corporate world, Johnson & Johnson, I believe. Then, if I have the word right, Valiant, you worked with them. I believe their name has changed, which is the CeraVe brand, if I have that right. And then on and on in your life. And I think, first, congratulations for all the things that you've done. And I know that you started, if I recall correctly, at the age of 3, you said you became a bun head, which through dancing. And I wonder, just tell us a little bit about just how that all happened and just what went on to make you a professional dancer to start your life.
Yes. So my first love was dancing. And the story goes that my parents took me to see my first ballet performance at the age of 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in the theater. And as soon as the dancers came on the stage, the lights came up, the curtain rose, and I just jumped up out of my seat and started twirling around in the aisle. So they kind of looked at each other and said, maybe we should put her in dance classes. And that's what I did. I started at Dottie's Dance Studio, which was a local dance studio.
The famous Dottie's?
Yes. No, it was, like any other ballet school or dance school in around the country. But at 3, what do? You just get the girls to move around.
Yeah.
And I studied all different kinds of dance growing up, so tap, ballet, jazz, but I fell in love with ballet and
Was there a point in time in there
about it.
Was there a point in time in there at what age would you say it clicked? You're a little girl doing this, and I'm sure for a while, all my daughters did it. None of them really stuck with it, but there comes a point where it takes a next step, where like kind of you, consciously as an individual say, "Wow, I want to do this." Did that hit at a certain age, or when would you identify that?
Yeah, I think it was probably around like age 8 or 9, where you start to have to think about, do I actually want to go and get point shoes?
Mm-hmm.
So many ballet dancers start on point at age 10 or 11
Mm-hmm.
when your body has developed enough, you have enough strength. And at that point, I just had really loved dancing. And so I ended up leaving Dottie's dance studio. I don't even know what age it was, but I went to a more serious
Yeah.
ballet-focused school, also in Wilmington, Delaware.
Okay.
And and then I followed that path of getting my point shoes, and then I auditioned for a local ballet company, Wilmington Ballet Company. I
Okay.
don't know if it's around still, but they were sort of semi-professional, and I got into that dance company in high school.
Okay.
And that's what I did. So I didn't do sports. I didn't party after school.
Yeah.
I didn't date. I just danced.
And you loved it.
But I loved it. I loved it. Yeah.
You weren't being forced. Like, some kids, I coached all my girls in sports, and there'd be these parents that were, at times I'd think, well, let the girl develop. She's 12. Maybe she doesn't want to be a pro soccer player, but it seems to me that something you wanted to do it. This was an inner drive.
I did want to do it. So my mom was a classical pianist,
Okay.
and she taught piano in our home.
Okay.
So I grew up with music in the house. I, of course, learned piano as well.
Of course.
And then I also studied flute. So I was doing all of that in middle school.
Yeah.
And then I think probably that point where I decided to focus on ballet is when it just starts to become too much.
Yeah.
So as you get good at multiple things, you have to decide, what are you really passionate about?
Yep.
And that's when I decided to focus on ballet. But yeah, I was not forced to do it. And I think also just getting affirmation
Hmm.
along the way. So
Sure.
getting into that local ballet company, getting, bigger soloist roles and
Sure. I mean,
getting opportunities
it
through
feed.
dance. It
Yeah, it's what you need. I mean, I know for
exactly.
me, I had a similar thing where I was more. In eighth grade, I was the football quarterback, the point guard. I was the shortstop in baseball. Then I was practicing lacrosse with one of my brothers, and ultimately dropped everything, and that's what I played. Gosh, till I was 30.
Mm,
I just started getting accolades, and as a young man. And with testosterone, I like to run into things, and I was very physical, and it took a lot of practice, and when you're young, you have that brain that can just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, and
mhm.
you were in that mode, you were just all in.
Yeah, and I think you reference it, but you kind of find your friends and your community.
Yeah.
So that becomes part of why you want to do more of it as well.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
so
so,
I loved it. I did it up until senior year of high school.
uh-huh.
So I wanted to become a professional ballet dancer. But when you meet me in real life, you'll see I'm a little bit short
Okay.
and maybe I didn't quite fit the mold of a professional dancer. So I did quite well at the local level and, written up in the local newspaper and
Very cool.
recognized, but then auditioned for some professional ballet companies and I got a lot of rejections.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
That's
it was tough.
life in the big city. You got to get smacked
Yes,
around a little bit to get where you want to. But then, was it Limon or Limon, the dance company that you eventually got? Now, I want to a moment for a second here. You went to Princeton, is that correct?
I
Okay,
did. I
and
did. So
did you concurrently join this dance group, or were they separate events? Or chronologically, I was trying to get my hands around that.
yeah, no. So when I didn't get into a professional ballet company, I was 17 years old. This was before college. Then I decided, okay, I'm not going to dance anymore. So I quit dancing.
Okay.
And having Chinese parents,
Yep.
they basically had encouraged me to apply to college in parallel, which I'm very glad
Yeah.
that I did. And I ended up getting into Princeton. So I had that as my fallback, which is a great fallback.
So you were an
And I
intelligent young
started.
lady. We can say you're intelligent, or you did well in school. Well,
I
congratulations.
did well in
That's
school
no
in
small feat.
academics as well.
Yeah. So off to Princeton.
Um, so I went to Princeton, did not think I was gonna dance. I was just, in college. And then I saw Brooke Shields in a student dance company at Princeton, and it looked like a ton of fun. She was older, a year or 2 ahead of me, and I was like, "Well, maybe I can just see if, let me audition for the student dance company
Okay.
and, just try that out." And it wasn't ballet, it was all different kinds of dance. And so I got into that, dance company, Expressions Dance Company,
Okay.
and, started to make friends and build a community there and have fun dancing. And so then I also started taking classes at the dance department at Princeton. And you
Okay.
can't major in dance at Princeton, but it's quite a robust dance program because they're able to attract choreographers from New York City to
Sure.
actually come and teach and create pieces on the students.
Hmm.
So I got involved in that dance community. Those are still my best friends
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
college.
Yeah.
And, yeah, and so I discovered modern dance while I was at Princeton,
Yep.
which is very different than ballet. You're dancing in bare feet, not in point
Yeah.
shoes,
Yeah. No,
and,
I know that. I know the
um
difference only as little kids, but I know it enough to go. That's what modern dance is versus ballet, and there is a big difference to anybody who doesn't
Yes.
know. Just look at it on YouTube. You'll know right away the difference. So
Yes,
go ahead.
yeah, and it was yeah, I mean, it was a little bit weird at first, because I grew up in a very structured ballet environment where you know exactly what every move is supposed to look like, and in modern dance, I think it's where I really, really started to discover my own style
Yeah.
and my own way of expressing myself, and so, I guess, I stood out in one of my modern dance classes, and my professor suggested, "Why don't you audition for some modern dance companies?"
Oh.
And she hosted me in New York City at her apartment and kind of helped me navigate the audition process. And I got in that. So this leads to Limon. So
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
selected for a year-long tour with the Limon Dance Company, traveled all around the world performing with them.
Cool.
And
That must have been great as a young lady getting out there and moving all around. Now, that's got to be a pretty
yes,
heady experience. In addition to, that's cool. You're now in the limelight. That's a lot of
yes.
pressure and a great experience. Did you
It was
did
an
you
amazing
feel
experience.
pressure?
It's actually
Pardon me, did you feel pressure?
definitely. I mean, yeah, so, even just in the audition process, so there's hundreds of dancers that show up for just a few spots, and, yeah, you're performing on stages around the world, and you're,
Whew.
dancing with these amazing principal dancers and learning from them. So I wasn't a principal dancer when I first joined, but, yeah, I mean, I think growing up performing, I'm used to dealing with that kind of pressure,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think it raises my level as well,
Yeah,
so
it
I kind
amps you
of
up,
like some pressure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yes, yes.
I, unlike you, I took a slightly different path. I mentioned to you, I decided to go into the uh, excessive alcohol and drug use around the time of my mother's death, actually, and then
Mm,
started in inside sales on a phone. And the only thought there was, to me, it was like, well, okay, um, now you have to go back to like you were learning a new sport and you're playing with you're going to have to climb this ladder, and there's no shortcut here. It's just dig in and grind it out and prove that you are
mm,
better. And that was I was used to that environment. Like, okay, I got it. I really have to study this. I have to become better. And how do I do that?
mhm.
Hard work, study, keep trying, keep rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, and got better and better. But you eventually, at the you hung up the cleats, as they say, at roughly the age 27 or 28. Is that right?
Yeah, so I only danced with the Limon Company for 1 year and, didn't know, if I'd stay dancing, but then I auditioned for some other companies and eventually was invited to join Ralph Lemon Company, no
Okay,
relation
okay,
to Limon Company,
okay,
and ended up dancing several years with Ralph Lemon. So, Jose Limon, who started the Limon Dance Company, he died in the 1970s. So
okay.
his, company is still around, but performing a lot of the same pieces that he choreographed back then.
Yeah.
Um, and Ralph Lemon, as someone who is alive, it was a very different experience for me. So I, had the opportunity to be part of the creative process in choreographing the works, and
Oh,
it really
wow.
pushed me to like improvise and get even more comfortable with being
Sure.
uncomfortable and not having all the answers. And again, we just traveled all over, and that was an amazing experience. A much smaller company, which I liked. So I did that, and then he disbanded his company, and that's when I decided I was 27, wanted to start a family, and I just thought, I've lived my dream, and I don't think I want to stay in dance. I don't want to teach or choreograph, which is what many dancers do if they stay in the field.
Hmm.
And so, luckily, I had the Princeton degree, and I had been working part time
And
with my
you went back to
husband, who had
Columbia. Is that right?
I did. I went to Columbia Business School.
So you got an
Yeah. So
MBA in
living in New York
Columbia.
City,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
MBA at Columbia. Yeah. And that
Well,
helped me pivot and transition to J&J.
would you say that an MBA from Columbia, being from back east, you meet a lot of people who have taken that path. Uh, do you think that the greatest benefit was the education or the launch point into your professional career, or both? Having not been someone who had that opportunity, and having
Hmm.
watched siblings, one of the things I've told my children is, my path was not a good one. And the reason for a good education is that your launch into the professional life is at a better plateau. Would you agree with that, or which one would you say was the better? Do you think it was the launch point, the education, or maybe you
Hmm.
can expound upon that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. So, definitely with my dance background, I felt like I needed credibility to make a switch into business.
Sure.
So the MBA gave me that badge of, um,
Entry.
she knows. Yeah, yeah, she knows enough about business that she can make this transition from an arts
Yeah, yeah.
background into business. But that's where I think the education comes in as well, because I did need to brush up on, stats and calculus and
Yeah, yeah,
learn
yeah.
supply chain management
Yep,
and all
yep,
those
yep,
things.
yep.
So that just gave me more confidence of like, okay, I can learn this.
Mhm.
And now I know maybe as much as any other MBA
Sure.
going into business. But then it is about the network and what companies come on campus to recruit, because probably I wouldn't have gotten a job at J&J if I weren't at Columbia, but they came on campus to recruit, so I was able to apply for an entry-level role there,
Yeah, because I know
from
J&J
school.
was, obviously Johnson& Johnson, to anybody who may not know what J&J is. That was one of the, when I was, I'm 65. So I remember that was a hotshot job to get, even like the ones that I knew, a lot of people were getting into the sales side or product development side, or pardon me, product marketing side. They weren't picking scrubs. They were picking, they were picking people who were, they had a model that they wanted of an employee, and your knowledge, I guess, your education, but at first you didn't want to play on the dance thing, did you? Were you a little shy about kind of playing that into your career for a while, as I recall?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when I made the pivot from dance into business, I'm like, okay, now I'm putting on my business hat. So now I'm going to be professional. I'm going to be this
Hmm.
businesswoman. I'm going to succeed in
Hmm.
business. And I didn't think that my background, my arts background, would be as respected
Yeah, yeah,
as other people who maybe had advertising or consulting or other
sure.
types of backgrounds. And I started in a marketing role. So I just didn't really talk about it. I didn't share, to many people that I had been a dancer, just because I didn't think that it gave me credibility.
Yeah.
And I just focused on work. And yeah, it took me a while to realize that actually you should bring other parts of yourself into work.
Well, I found the same, in that I never shared with anybody through until probably I was what I would say more successful. My trauma with going through recovery, I always felt that that was a terrible black mark on my record, that it was a sign of being, flawed, broken. And I think that drove me in many ways, that I wanted to prove that mentally and within my peer group that I wasn't that person. Um, but it took me, I felt a little bit of like an imposter syndrome. And I think you mentioned that in one of your things where, I didn't own, when I would do well and I received promotions pretty consistently, I would always feel like they're going to figure me out. I'm putting this face forward that is behind me, is this scared, kid who's trying to prove himself, and he's got something to hide. And it took me a long time. And you mentioned that, this sort of imposter syndrome. How did that manifest itself in you? Was it the hiding of your professional career, or what would you say what were you being an imposter to?
Yeah, so I just felt like I was different from everybody else that kind of came in with the same class. So I could be the same if I focused on the work and did the work really well. But with the dance background, and also I had my first baby when I was in business school.
Okay.
So I came into J&J with a baby, and I also came in pregnant with my second one.
Yeah, I remember I read
So
about that.
12 weeks, yeah, 12 weeks after starting in this brand new role, my first corporate job, I went out on maternity leave. And
Okay.
so I put pressure on myself to come back really quickly.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think I had maybe ten weeks maternity leave at the time. And that's all I took. And I came back full time, two little kids, brand new in a job. And Yeah, I just felt like, oh, I've got to perform because there's going to be questions about me already.
Yeah,
The fact that I have kids, women do face that kind of
yeah.
sort of hidden maybe bias.
But as an Asian American, I wanted to ask, did you feel
Hmm.
any stigma on that level also? I mean, here you are, you're a pregnant woman, you're a dancer, you're hiding that. In your age group, Asian American female is not what I would call mainstream at the time.
Yes, that was true at the time. I wouldn't say it was stigma, but I definitely didn't see Asian role models.
Hmm.
So there were not a lot of Asian female executives at the top
Yeah.
at Johnson and Johnson, and there still are not enough executives. So I think there's, Asian Americans make up 13% of the US population, but only 3% of executives, male or female.
Hmm.
So, and then now I serve as a board director, and there are also not a lot of Asian board directors. I think Fortune 1000 companies, only 50% have an Asian director. So 50% don't have any Asian directors. And now, that's a huge gap and a huge missed opportunity because Asians are a fast growing consumer segment in the US.
Absolutely.
But yes, and it was at that point that, and this happens to a lot of expats who do international assignments. You've worked overseas as well, where you've had this transformative experience on your
Hmm.
assignment, and then you come back to the US or your home country, and people don't understand it. They have no idea what you went through. And so they sort of slot you back into, oh, you never left. So I felt like, wow, I didn't even get credit for like
Yeah,
moving my whole family over there and like this whole new experience that I got. Yeah, and I felt like I was passed over for this promotion that, why wasn't I even considered? And
sure.
so at that point is when I was like, I'm not happy here. This is not the environment I want to be in. And I left and I got a promotion at a smaller company. That's when I went to Valiant Pharmaceuticals, now Bausch Health,
Okay.
as general manager over their consumer products
Well,
portfolio. And
that's
so
pretty cool.
CeraVe
So,
is part of that.
a general
Yeah.
manager now, but let me ask you, when what would you say were the most disappointing things, not so much as to career, but maybe people around you? Because I think a lot of younger people don't realize that there's a lot of challenges within personalities around you at work that can be sometimes divisive, sometimes very sneaky. That can be things that were upsetting to you. Any examples of
Yeah.
that where you'd say just kind of as a younger professional really caught you off guard? Like, wow, I didn't think a person could be that way, without naming names. Did
Yes.
you have that happen to you?
Yes, definitely. So bad behavior from a senior boss. So
Okay.
not my direct manager, but one of the senior leaders in the organization in the US when I came back. Just, I would say a narcissist
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
concerned about himself looking good and just created somewhat of a toxic environment for, you know, the teams underneath. And that's when that was a big contributor.
Hmm.
So, he's the one who had a lot of power to decide who gets promoted.
Yeah.
So that's when I felt like I was passed over, not considered. And yeah, and at the time I would also talk about culture
Yeah.
because that can create a bad culture. A
Sure.
bad leader can create a really bad culture, and that was a big contributor for me evaluating and saying, "Is this the place I want to be?" Because had become very internally focused,
Yeah.
and um, there were some recalls. I don't know if you remember, there was a recall on Tylenol around
Oh,
that
I remember
time.
that very
There were
well.
quality issues, yeah, and so the whole organization had become very internally focused, and I really love driving innovation, focusing on customers, and
And when you have a
that
boss,
all went
when you
away.
have a boss who's playing the old, I guess we call CYA, I want to get accolades, but maybe at the cost of my the people who are my the people working for me. That and I used to say, if you want to find out somebody's true personality, promote them. And you will find people that who seem very. I had some people work for me who seemed very practical and good at what they did, and then they get a promotion, and all of a sudden they become arrogant, or they are better than. And nothing offended me more professionally than, I honestly believe that I was not better than the guy in the warehouse. I really didn't. I thought in this little bubble of the world, I'm the boss. Once we get outside of this bubble, I'm just Mark. And, when I got here, in business, the rules were set up. I'm not a jerk, but I made risks. I did things that, I chose a different path, and now I'm the boss. But other people, I'm sure you saw it as they move up and they gain, power is, what is it? Power, whatever the thing is, power makes people, can really distort people. And it sounds like you ran into that with this fellow that maybe you worked with.
Yes. And the second time at the end of my career at J&J, I would say there was another leader that created a toxic environment. Again, not my direct boss, but, that can just make people feel like, what am I doing here? Or, you don't have to make me feel lesser in order to make yourself feel better.
Yeah.
So sometimes you do need to walk away.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I tried, you try to prove yourself, but yeah, I just found myself getting so negative and complaining all the time.
Oh, then you
That
become.
it's like, okay, I don't like myself right now.
Yeah. You feel dirty when you
I
leave
need
the
to
office.
change.
You're like, ugh.
Yeah.
I had that. I worked I was in the packaging business, and we sold the bags that you put coffee into. And you may have seen, if you squeeze a coffee bag, there's a little belly button in it. You smell. Yeah. Well, the business I owned had a patent on that. But I originally worked for the Italian company from Milan, who sold the machines and originally had that valve. And so they were like, the kind of Gillette by the, and we want to sell you the razors, we'll give you away the whatever you call it. And then we sell you all the razors. Well, we wanted to sell you the machine and sell you all the bags. And it was a Milanese company. And the man who ran it was so controlling and so critical, would yell at you. And I think for the longest time for me, I felt like, I have to prove myself. I have to, okay, so I'm receiving criticism. I've received criticism through my life. Maybe at that point in my life, I still had a sense of an imposter syndrome. So I have to prove, but I mean, a very smart but aggressive and cancerous boss. And so a similar thing to you, but the question I'm getting around to is, at one point I quit. I had 3 kids and I just quit. No job. I got another job I had a 1-year non-compete. I told my wife, but what I'm getting around to is, I didn't feel as though I quit. I felt as though I had no other choice. There wasn't a sense of, I'm going to make a conscious decision to go from A to B. It was, I had no choice. And they say in life a lot that we only make big changes in our life when we feel there's no alternative. That you're sitting in wherever you are and you're terribly upset. Do you think you really had a choice, or did you just feel there was no other choice than to leave?
I think it was a good kick in the pants to reevaluate what was important to me at that time. So I'll call it an inflection point where I could have stayed and maybe seen it through and, gritted my teeth and made it. But I think it forced me to prioritize, like, what's important to me. Am I happy here? Am I going to be happy? Or is there something better out there? And so I would say it was a bit of both, of where, yes, maybe that was not, like, I would not have stayed. So to your point, like, maybe there was no choice, but it helped me realize there are other opportunities out there
Yeah.
that I could go for. And there are other choices out there.
Yeah.
So it's not like I just had to leave. Um, and then be unhappy.
Yeah. Well, it's a it's a
there were
frightening.
many other things I could do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot of people
Yeah.
can't see that. My great
True.
fear was, okay, so I'm going to grow. I'm good at selling. At that point, I was running the Starbucks account. I was the hot shot. But I started thinking, so where am I going to be in 5 or 10 years if I keep this job? Like, what's that look like? And that's where I couldn't reconcile it. I couldn't reconcile it in my mind. And the only thing I thought was, I know it's not here. And I know I have an entrepreneurial drive. That was my, and so mine was more of a, okay, I'm going to turn right. I had written business plans, quite a few, about how I would start a business that was a smaller version of the one I was in. But I didn't know where. It's kind of I've said, I knew there was a school bus out there and I was chasing it. But I could just barely smell the gasoline coming off the back of it. And I didn't quite know if it was really a school bus or not. but I had this faith that, yeah, it's out there. It's there. Just run.
Yeah.
And at that point, I had to make that, I hear you talk about that, like, okay, so sit still where you are. Well, I could tell what that life was going to be. I could tell.
Yes.
And I was 37 and I thought, Mark, if there's ever a time where you can pull the plug, it's now. And you talk about an inflection point. Something said, do it. In retrospect, I think, I remember my dad saying to me, Mark, there's nothing glamorous about having not a lot of money. There's nothing glamorous about being, less money. And I took like a 30% pay cut. He said, so just don't kid yourself. When you make that jump and you land on the other side, it's hard. I didn't listen to that at 37. I just thought, oh yeah, well, I'm going to do it. Well, who cares? And you have 3 children, you have a wife, and nothing was going to stop me. And I had some guilt about that. I think you mentioned that at one point, look at me trying to be, what, am I doing this for them or me? Where is this, I have these 3 little girls and here I have to go out and prove myself? Prove that I'm better? And the answer was, yeah. I mean, ultimately, I made the pull. So you make this pull, but you have 2 children, but they're a little older now when you make your big inflection point.
Yes. Yeah. So I went to Valiant Pharmaceuticals, and the jewel in that portfolio was the CeraVe skincare brand.
Yes.
And I just had a blast there. So I learned so much leaving J&J. Let's see, I'd been at J&J about 12 years at that point. And so I was classically trained in the way that they do things. And then when you go to a smaller, more entrepreneurial company, you realize that's not how everybody
No.
gets stuff done. And CeraVe was more of a disruptor brand, so nipping at the heels of the big J&J brands. And it was just so much fun. It felt more creative. We had smaller budgets, much scrappier. And then because I was leading that consumer business, then I was the one, externally facing, going to the big conferences. And it was I would say a great leadership growth period for me.
You felt alive. You felt alive. You were.
I did.
The
I
engines
was having
were back
fun again.
on.
I was
Yeah,
having fun.
Yeah. That's a wonderful professional feeling when the engines are on. And being with a smaller company, one of the things that I brought on a few people that I had known that came from Avery Dennison, a big label company. Packaging that wouldn't make much sense to anybody else. But what I used to say to them was, here's the problem we have. You don't have a staff of people to help you make a product development decision. You are the staff. And here's the other problem. We have to know it in 4 days. Now, what does that leave you with? Well, that leaves you with, at the end of that 4 days, speculation. We don't have the perfect answer, but you're the one who's going to make the decision. And I think some people that come from a bigger company environment can find that a very uncomfortable place because they're inclined
Absolutely.
to say, well, let my team work on it or let somebody else work on it. And I would be like, well, you're it with me and I trust you. Pull it. Do it.
Yep.
And just do it. And, I trust it. In fact, I actually trust that we're probably going to screw some of these things up for the very reasons that are making you nervous. But we don't have a
Yes.
choice. So at the newer business, what I'm getting from you, limited budgets, a little more scrappy. You were experiencing that kind of like move a little faster. It can't all be perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, J&J has an R&D group, a market research department, like someone working on pricing. And at this company, like we were it. So you do have to find the right people. I did recruit some people from J&J to join me,
Sure.
and you have to find the right person that is willing to be entrepreneurial and has that sense of like I myself had to trust my gut more.
Yeah.
That's what you were talking about.
Yeah.
You have to like trust your instincts given the information you have. And you don't have all the resources to get every last data point.
Yeah. Well, I say
So you
good's
just
better
have
than
to
perfect.
decide.
Good's better than perfect.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think
Yeah.
so what would you were there anybody that you would say, wow, that was a mentor. That's somebody that I looked at and felt I want to emulate. Or, I think a mentor is a simple one, but anybody that anywhere in the world, maybe even outside of your business, maybe around our culture, who are some of the people that you considered to be shining stars or a
Mm.
path that you wanted to follow?
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like I followed my own path, and that's what I really want to encourage other people to do is not to try to be like somebody else
Mm-hmm.
or to follow the traditional path. And I always, when I had that choice, felt like I'm going to go this way because it feels right to me.
Yeah.
Um, versus I could have stayed on this other path and seen what that would look like. Maybe I didn't want to like see exactly what my life would look like.
Yeah.
But definitely I would say there were a lot of people at J&J that were mentors and sponsors for me, who really encouraged me along the way, gave me feedback, tough feedback at
Yeah.
times,
Yeah.
and then helped me move around to, get those promotions or take on new assignments. And, I moved from the consumer business to the medical device business after I returned to J&J. And none of that would have happened without people helping me out.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And so subsequent to all that, you're now involved with a lot of board work. What are you doing now? Let's hear about that. Like, what's the path to now?
yeah. So after leaving J&J after 20 years, so long story short, I left Valiant and got recruited back to J&J.
Yeah, I remember
so
that.
in a way, they saw my worth. And then I moved to the medical device business, did another international assignment in Europe. And then
Switzerland,
at the
was it?
end of that, Switzerland,
Yes.
lived
Okay.
in Zurich
Yeah.
after my husband and I became empty nesters.
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah.
a really fun time. We were able to travel a lot around Europe. Um, and then left J&J without a job. So you were talking about that before. But just felt like, I wasn't excited about the roles that were being offered me back in the US. And it had been an amazing 20 years in total. And I just felt at that point I had made so many different types of transitions that I just trusted I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
At this point in my career, I'll find something. And I did walk away from a lot of equity, but I was fine.
Yeah.
And the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
So that was mid-March 2020 when we moved back to the US. The pandemic happened. And I started looking at, again, another inflection point. What did I want to do next?
It's interesting.
And I started thinking, yeah.
It's interesting that you say that because I sold my business in 2019. Now, some would say, oh, aren't you a genius because you did it just prior to pandemic? No, I didn't want to sell my business. Someone came along and I feel like offered me more money than they had to. It succeeded on their own, but at the time it happened, I was like, wow, I always thought I would just be a guy running a business, and now I'm making good money, and I have these 5 girls, and married for 30 years, and wow, this is just great. And somebody made me an offer that I was like, wow, wow, that's a hard. I didn't believe them. I thought they were going to try and pull some. You're an MBA, so I've been around buying shares from my business, and I thought they were going to try and pull off some due diligence tomfoolery, like, oh, we've got under the hood and now the company's not worth that and it's not worth this. And I knew it was, and I had just said to them, if we do any of that, I'll just walk. I don't need this. I'm at a stage in my life where if you just start playing these games on principle or start play around, I will walk. I will. And they didn't. But that ended up putting me at the pandemic retired. And that was an inflection point for me. And it sounds to me like you hit a similar one.
You couldn't go anywhere.
I couldn't go anywhere. And now I always said, oh, I'm Mr. Humble. I'm okay. I'm CEO owner. And to some extent, you get treated different ways when you're going around town and people claim you're smart and you're wonderful. And, and you start thinking maybe you are. And then you stop. And now you're not. And I joke around with my friends. What I learned was I was more vain than I thought I was. that I had to take a deep breath and go, let's reassess, who I am. And I think it sounds like you did the same.
Yeah. So, I moved back mid-March 2020 and then had the summer off basically because I was still employed with J&J, but not really doing much work for them at the end. And I hired an executive coach because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Did you do it too?
I did. I got it.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I'm telling you, praise to a woman by the name of Janet Bogich. She's out here in Seattle. I would say, wow, what a game changer for me. But go ahead. You got an executive coach.
Yeah, it was very helpful because we did like the strengths profile and just having someone to listen to you and play back what they're hearing was very useful and gave me some useful frameworks like developing a criteria list of what it is that I was looking for and prioritize that list. But it just validated for me that, okay, these are my strengths. And these are the ones that actually I really am good at doing and I enjoy doing. And then here are, all these things that maybe I'm good at doing them, but they drain my energy. And so, that's all from answering a questionnaire. It's all information that I provided myself, but having somebody and that tool to help tell me that was very useful. And so I decided to develop a criteria list for two paths. One was to build a board portfolio and pursue this portfolio career, which is basically a lot of different part-time work.
That's what I did too.
That's what we're doing now. And then the other was, okay, if there is another full-time role, what would it be? And not specifically a title or a company, but like what's all the criteria of what you would be looking for. And so I started pursuing both paths, doing a lot of networking, just informational interviews to learn and understand what was out there. And I got an offer for a private equity backed board. And at the same time, I got an offer from Google for a full-time job. So
they're well known.
I took the Google job. I definitely took the Google job.
Yeah.
Partly because that summer I thought like I was ready for this part-time portfolio career. But one, I learned it can take time to get on boards.
Oh, yeah.
And then the other is that I found myself wandering around the house in the summer that first pandemic year.
Yeah, that'll
and
drive
I was
you
like,
crazy.
oh, yeah, okay, yeah. I need to work again.
Yeah, you're too busy. You're busy brain.
Yeah. So I took the full-time job at Google. I'm really glad that I did and was there for about 3 years as part of Google Cloud. And I'd never worked in big tech before. And it reminded me a lot of when I had first left J&J and went to a more entrepreneurial environment. But I found I was just learning, like huge learning curve. And I loved that. I loved the challenge. I loved learning all about the technology and figuring out, what they could do to help
Yeah,
healthcare organizations.
what a fascinating
So
side of the world right now to
yes,
just to be a part of. You know,
yes.
I want to get to a question that ties into our conversation more. So I'm speaking to somebody that clearly is driven and clearly has, what I would call grit, which I just love that book. I just thought it spoke to me so much. If nobody's read it I just think it's a wonderful book. Um, what, what would you say are the ingredients of a person that has that drive? Like what sparked it in you? Here's a question. Is it is it nature or nurture, or is it both? By your nature, you're at 3 and you spin around in the middle of thing in a dress. That's kind of I don't know, kind of a philosophical question of sorts, but it's always
Hmm.
interesting to me when I meet somebody like you. So what was that? What do you think that
Yeah.
was? Or how do you identify that in somebody else? Any
Yes.
comment on that? For
Yeah. Yeah.
you
I
and
love
then
that
for somebody
question.
else,
Hmm.
what is it? Nature, nurture? I don't know. Something made you the way
Yeah.
you are.
Well, I'm going to say it's both,
Yeah. Well.
both nature and nurture, but definitely my upbringing. So my parents are immigrants from China,
Hmm.
and they instilled that work ethic in me and my sister of just you got to work hard. Education is important. And I saw my father. He worked his way up from paying his own way through graduate school, which is he first came over to the United States for school, working as a dishwasher in a Chinese restaurant.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he started from there to become a vice president of an engineering company in Delaware, based in Delaware. So I saw him, and he was always happy,
Yeah.
and supportive of us. But yeah, so definitely that was instilled in me. But I think finding dance at an early age and, like, applying myself to something that I was passionate about, taught me that if I work hard and pour myself into something I love, I will see results. And so I would say I learned a lot just from that experience. And there's so many skills that I learned from dance
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I now apply in business and leadership today around, you know, you practice, practice, practice.
Yeah. You got
And,
no choice. You got no choice.
you work so hard at it. But then there's joy at the end when you're performing. So there was, I think that was reinforced. We talked about performing under pressure. That was instilled in me, and I definitely tap into that today.
Yeah.
The discipline, the creativity. There's so
Sure.
many things that sports and dance or something that you're passionate about teach you and you carry through life.
Yeah. I think somebody once told me maybe a little differently that I'm a chaos junkie. I I I like to I like to enter things that have don't have that need to get put together. Like something's wacky, and I will run into it sometimes almost like I know, like it's kind of like the bus analogy. I know where it's going. Like in my business, I know where I'm going, but I wish I almost can't verbalize it. It's somebody would say, "Oh, you have a vision." I'm like, well, if I have a vision, it's a pretty murky one, But I will convey or I will elucidate this to you. But in fact, it's gray, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. I know what I want, but I don't. And then I go, well, how would I find that in somebody else? How could I identify that? And I think that's one of the great challenges with people our age when you're looking back at somebody, that 24-year-old who's coming out of or 27-year-old. How would you identify that now? What would there be a methodology for you to sit with somebody at 25, 26, 27 and know that you're picking the right one?
Hmm. I host a podcast
Yes, I
called the
do. I
Leadership
know. And I
Dance
wanted you to, the
Podcast.
leadership dance. I didn't, we're not going to leave that behind. And I listened to quite a few of it.
Yes, and but I'm working with an agency, and I have someone who helps me with communications,
Okay.
and she's younger, and I would describe her as what you're saying is like I know we're similar in that like she cares about the details.
Yeah.
She's just as passionate about um, getting the episodes just right and
Yeah.
following
Yeah.
up and making sure that everything's working well. And that's the type of person I'm like, I will work with her every day and
Yeah.
help support her and mentor her because I see it early that she's got that drive. She's got the
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
drive and interest.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
interest and willingness to take feedback and just learn and apply all of that learning. So
I
for
used to
me, I
find it.
think it's someone who's curious.
Yeah, I used
Mhm.
to find it with younger people. There was two things. You give them something to do, and there would be the ones who would not say anything and then come back to you with it poorly done. And then there would be the ones who are driven, who would be wanting your feedback kind of throughout. Like they would go, hey, whatever, give them a big, huge statistical thing. Tell me how this particular bag has been performing over the past few years and our price points and all that, kind of stuff. You have to really dig in. And this is going to be kind of I did it, but it's a little boring. It's a little monotonous. And they would come back and say, hey, I'm going this path or I'm going that path. And that's when you see it. Like, oh,
Mhm.
so you actually think past the thing I said. And that's now all of a sudden you're watching this brain of somebody else's working. And I think it's like synchronicity, all of a sudden you're like,
Mhm.
ooh, and you're younger. I think I can tilt you a little to the right because you're getting ready to run right into a brick wall. Do you care me to hear why you shouldn't run into the brick wall? And the good ones generally will listen. Some of them have to smash into it. But
Yeah.
it sounds to me that when I was once told when I was younger that older people will help you just because you're younger, that they want to help. And when I was younger, older people I couldn't see that until I got a little older. But now at our age, and I think I'm older than you, but we'll call it somewhere around the same. I am older than you, I think, pretty sure. But anyway, when you see somebody like that, you want to help.
When you meet young people that want to change the world and are actually applying themselves to doing that, like
Mm-hmm.
that's motivating and inspiring for us as well.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess let's see here if we can try to come to a conclusion. I could chit chat around and really, we all have things
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I realized I didn't answer your question about what I'm doing now.
Oh,
Do you
so
want me
I'm
to answer
sorry.
that?
Pardon me. Pardon me.
No, I got
Me too. I
on a
got
tangent,
floating
so
along on one of my philosophical edges. So go ahead. Go ahead. What you're doing now.
yeah, so now I'm building a portfolio of work that I find interesting and engaging and gives me flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not working full time anymore.
Okay.
Although sometimes I feel like I'm working full time
Well,
with everything on my plate.
yeah.
So I'm serving on for-profit and nonprofit boards, including the Honest Company.
Yeah.
So a
I read
company
about
started
that.
by Jessica Alba.
I know.
And also going back to my dance roots, I'm on the board of trustees of American Ballet Theater. And then I am an executive in residence at Columbia Business School, which essentially means giving back to the community, mentoring students in the
Mm-hmm.
business school,
Yeah.
and doing some guest lectures and things there. And then I launched this podcast
Yeah.
less than a year ago.
Yeah. Give us the name
So
of that
that's
again.
taking a lot of my time.
Yeah. I've enjoyed it. So, and tell us about that.
Yeah, it's called the Leadership Dance Podcast. And on it, we explore the art of leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And I interview trailblazers in business and the arts. So you
Okay.
can see it combines my background, but really, I want to show other people who may have unconventional backgrounds that it can be done through these conversations with people who are breaking barriers in their respective fields. So it's been a lot of fun having these
What's the
conversations.
motivation for that? What motivated? I mean,
I think
something made you say, gee, I'm going to go do this. Because it's not, I mean, I'm doing it. It's not an easy task. It's time consuming. It takes some effort to get done. What provoked you to want to do it?
I think one of the reasons, a little selfish, is that I get a lot of people who reach out and want to have one-on-one calls and understand my journey and how did you do that?
Yeah, yeah.
Which is
And
the
why?
topic of your podcast. And so I was like, well, one way to scale me is maybe to launch this podcast.
Sure.
And not just me, but then enrich it with conversations with other people who are doing incredible things and hear their journeys, hear their advice for how do you succeed, maybe in a corporate world where, again, you don't look like or think like everybody else, or in the dance world where I just think there's creativity and things we can learn from dancers that apply in leadership, and thus the leadership dance was born.
Yeah, well, I think that challenge is good, and I think when you're young, it's good, because I think team sports, for me, the whole issue with getting myself into a terrible addiction and getting out of it. Was a fight, and you had to keep your eye on there's hope, there's a good thing in me, and there's something in there that I need to nurture and grow. And I don't know, for me, it was driven entrepreneurially. I just had to do it. That's what was in me. I think I'm from a long Irish Catholic line of people who were scrappy trying to find businesses, and I think it just was in there. Sort of, say nurture nature. I think clearly there was something in there that was getting dripped down me from generations behind me that were saying, you got to go prove yourself. And we could get into all the, reasons that may be versus one culture or another. But it was driven into me. And I think that for me, unlike your show is really cool, because I think you have people that have really done some fantastic things, and if anybody has not listened to it, you really should. Mine has been a little different in that I'm trying to find people that maybe they didn't pursue. Like, I'm always fascinated. How did somebody get to our age and have been able to say, I am content? And I think it's pretty cool that a lot of it isn't money and or corporate driven. And they're the ones that always fascinated me, because I can't understand why. Like, why do you want to work in the save pet community and make no money? Like, I can't, like, my head. But then at the end of the game, I say, well, who achieved what? Why, you got to the same spot. You know what I'm saying? And that it's fascinating when I hear you. I'm like, well, wow, going through big companies, and like, that just strikes me as horrific. For me, but you found your answer there. And I think in your show, is it mostly women that you're having on your show?
It's mostly women, people from more diverse backgrounds or unconventional careers.
Yeah, and ones that are more challenging. Good. I think that's cool. And I just want to thank you for taking a moment to chat with me. And once again, tell us about your show again, one more time. Let's get that plug. Come on in. Give it again.
Yes, the Leadership Dance, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. So take a listen.
Personally, I think it's the best podcast out there. I've listened to Joe Rogan, doesn't hold a candle. Okay.
You heard it from Mark.
Yes, listen to me. Listen, I'm going to tell you a couple things about this. You listen to it. Send this girl money, okay? Don't worry. She won't send it back, okay? Just cash she'd prefer, because, you got to avoid the IRS. Send money.
No, don't do that. Don't do that.
No, I don't. And don't send it to me either. we want to do it up and up here. You don't want to, whatever. Enough of that. But anyway, thank you so much again for your time. And I really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on your podcast, Mark, and sharing my story.
Great,
Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for listening to The Mark Howley Show. If you found this story as intriguing as we did, give us a like, share the episode, and subscribe at The Mark Howley Show. New episodes every other Friday. Adios.